Hello, welcome back. Should say welcome back to Mr. Producer and I. We're back in, as you can see, we're back in our digs here in the northern New Hampshire area after a fairly extended trip over to London and then to Paris and Giverny, and it was a very great time, totally organized by Mr. Producer and Olly M, who's one of my longtime students, long past students in London. Well, thank you guys. This is was a really excellent time, and I thank you on behalf of the attendees at the event. The reason of this whole thing was to do an intensive opportunity for people who've been thinking about my way of working and trying to sort it out better. And I really hope it was good for you all. Felt it was very good for me to see how much you were able to pick up already about what I've been teaching, and then to be able to see your work and what you still needed to know and that sort of thing. The art of color, of course, what I'm talking about today feeds into that or comes right directly out of that sort of a thing. But I'm showing you here. Well, let me before I before I say any more, let me just thank Ben C and Jimmy C for those kind and continuing donations, and wish you guys well, and God's blessing for all your assistance. We stood. This is Chris and I. Chris was in the studio in New Hampshire. But we're standing in front of the Rouen Cathedral, and that's the made most famous by the works of Monet. Let me see if I can give you the large version of this thing. Here we go. There we are, the Rouen Cathedral, and so we stood actually we backed up as far as we could to where the most plausible location was, just given that you need distance and you can't see this building. You're so close up, the perspective is on top of you. But we stood back and stood back, and then we found ourselves, somebody finally looked up and we reviewed this, and here we found ourselves looking from pretty much exactly, would be a little bit over to the left, but exactly otherwise from where Monet did so many of those shots of the cathedral. And so what I thought to do today was just talk a little bit about color with this particular idea in mind of talking about what else color can do. The thing I'm trying to promote among all of you is to just learn to study nature, learn how to make what's happening in front of you, both in terms of its values, its colors, and all those things that relate, and of course drawing and all those. But Monet in this shot here shows us he just switches all the way over from being a sort of a student, as it were, of Baudin and Jonkind over the Dutch, to what you might call becoming his own person in color research. And nobody's ever done anything like what he did to get us alerted to the the thing we do as a distinctively color problem. And I think I may have spoken a little bit about, if I haven't, I will at some point, about what we saw I think also in Rouen or some other places, maybe the d'Orsay Museum in Paris, examples of Degas using color, and finally through the dance pictures in particular, really reinvesting our form in color. So that that having been our trip to Giverny, we returned to Paris, and among the other things we did, besides the d'Orsay, which is a significant thing to have seen, I did have to take a day off and didn't go see the Louvre. I feel really sad about that, because that's where the great, so the guy often referred to as the greatest colorist of all time, Veronese, that's where his Marriage at Cana resides, and that's a big, beautiful, wonderful picture. not showing it to you here. But what we did is we went to Saint-Germain-des-Prés, which is because I'd forever seen the works of Flandrin, who was a student of Ing. I'd forever seen that guy's works and wondered about it. And and when we got there, we arrived to find that they had recently been in the process of repainting. The cathedral basically was looking like this, what you see up here. And all of a sudden, I mean, they apparently found the original painting of the pillars and that sort of thing and put it back. They began the process of repainting. As you can see, all these pillars over here, the golds, the greens, and the reds, replete throughout this entire place. So when you get to Flandrin, you're talking about something that's already got a color system set for him, doesn't it? By the way, not to least of which is the sky and the gold leaf itself, of course. But I'm showing you this because I'm showing you what uses one puts color to if you're trying to make your world a better place. And I'm talking about now the public place. And it's amazing how many buildings we're doing today that have absolutely no color. Nothing comes. And I'm talking about nothing to lift the heart, elevate the mind, etc., which is a thing that color does. So here's another of the same pillars, obviously a different design, but of the same pillar painted the same way. But this one's obviously leaves, like maybe acanthus leaves, and the other one is critters. But again, you can see the pillars, the various pillars, and how much data. This is all, by the way, hand painted. All this stuff here has the appearance of being just painted with a brush. And there's pattern after pattern all the way up these pillars, stars, crosses, different things, symbols. And above in the background is the mural work of Flandrin. This was a 20 to 30 year endeavor, as I understand it, with a few years off to do another church somewhere nearby in Paris. By the way, I have to say Paris is easily the most beautiful city I've seen. I mean, all I've seen is cities in the United States before this, apart from, and also Ottawa and Montreal in Canada, which have their own French, shall we say, connection, and they're truly beautiful cities in a similar kind of vein as what you see in Paris. But London didn't seem to quite have that charm by any stretch in terms of just sheer beauty of architecture and this is just an example of how they're taking a church and just loading it up. I'll just show you a whole bunch more pictures. We don't have to stay on this. One of the things, before I maybe just go into all this further, meaning this is actually, if you can look close at it, you'll see there's lines painted on this thing, vertical lines. There's patterns in between. There's little shapes. And these are all different colored pillars. This row being that kind of blue, this area out here being this kind of blue. And you can see these are all colors that are pleasing with the gold leaf. But it seems that the building, while it's gray or was gray, is coming back to being very little gray in terms of the architectural stone that's that underlies everything. But I want to mention simply that there are a lot of art, little rooms that have sort of arched shapes, paintings, and they're nowhere near. They're perfectly nice paintings. They have nice color, but but they don't quite deliver in the same. They feel almost like dark holes, old things, and stuff like that, compared to the charm of the entire building, and to and which is to me is kind of a sad loss. Not that they're bad, and I don't want to say that. I don't know the painter, by the way. It wasn't somebody atop of anybody's list. But when you get out into the main area of this cathedral, which is really high, I think it's got to be 100 feet looking up, but you'll start seeing murals by Flandrin, who was a student of mine, and you'll see his color schemes are infused with the kinds of colors that were around the building. Classic thing to do in architecture. I mean, in mural painting, when you have architecture driving it. which is most of the time. So here's Christ entering Jerusalem on the donkey, and we have but you can begin to see here the real richness of this thing. There's a huge area that's basically gold, it's a gold leaf, and has various little alcoves in it and all that sort of thing. But what the takeaway from this place is how astonishingly beautiful it is in color. And I can't even begin to present it to you how beautiful it is. I'm trying to remember what the age of this building is. I have a suspicion it was around 1,000, 1,300 maybe. And I heard and forgot. But now here you can see, well, you can see the pillars here and the kind of color that's incorporated here, and you can see the sky and the reds of the pinks, as it were, the reds in the drapery, the greens in the drapery. All this stuff is definitely directly related to what's happening out here, which is really what a commendation, to bring a building back together. And I understand they're doing it privately, which is even more astonishing. I'm just trying to give you a quick visit of this stuff, which is showing the idea that color isn't limited to learning outdoors to hit notes, but that it's available to you to bring delight. This is the difference between what we were doing. We were out there studying nature, studying the color and life in nature, which is, as Degas says, the source. And then you come in here and you actually do what we call applied art or decorative art, and it's really something special when it all comes together like this. And there are many churches that have done this. I'm just happen to have known about the Flandrin for some long time, so. That's way up high. I think that shows here, and then a close-up of that a little bit. But that isn't the most promising of this, although that seems to be a collection of saints, or saints, what I mean is Bible characters, David, Solomon. And then, but again, this gives you a little bit of a sense, again, of the building. Some of these shots are the ones we took, and other ones that I'm going to show you, or have maybe already shown you, they've lit the whole place up, so you can see all these things better than you can see them in life. But I believe it's more beautiful when you see them in person than when you buy a lot, I think, which commends the painter, definitely, than when you see them in those photographs, which I'm about to show you. So there again, all the variously painted pillars. Look at all the strange patterns all the way up and down this thing. Apparently, all again looking like it's hand painted with a brush. Then again, all around the top of these arches is this belt, if you want to call it that, all around this entire single room. There are side rooms over here, but this is the big room where the chairs are, the pews. But this goes around. It goes to the end, that previous one I showed you, with Christ entering Jerusalem, and then. But this is a view through one of the side rooms of the same stuff. And these are, I think, beginning to be the official photographs, and I think they've lit the place really strikingly, just for the purpose of the photograph, would be my guess. This is back to one of our shots. No, I think it's one of their shots also, yeah. Again, you can see how richly colored it is. And it's so satisfying. We just, on a hot day, last week, we just spent an hour or more sitting and walking around and observing, enjoying. Again, this is one of those side rooms, if I'm reading it right. Am I reading it right? Yeah. But yeah, I've made no attempt actually to understand that building, so forgive me for that part, except to talk about the color. Again, you can see that the red pillar, the blue basically up in here, but it's blue, gold, and red, all incorporated into the capital of the column. And then all these guys beautifully coming out here with their various patterns, colors, et cetera, et cetera. I'm doing this actually just for one reason, and that is to show how painting can enable, every building, any time, if it's done intelligently. By the way, they so do appreciate Flandrin that they built a monument to him. I suppose after 30 years of work, they felt they owed him something. This is literally in the church. So that's Flandrin, probably a thank you of some sort. So, but yeah, that's the story. I wanted to just make that one single communication with you that, you can go to Giverny, you can see where color really came back to life. Not that it hasn't been there in lots of arts throughout history, but where that just painting from life, all of a sudden, instead of being, you know, ancient formulas or handed down formulas for everything, you actually are beginning to use your eyes again and really see color. You get from that to get to guys like Degas really, really starting to use it in easel pictures. And he considered himself, he said, I consider myself a painter out of a job. I believe that was Degas who said that. To all the way over here where you're using it along both sides of this building. And this, by the way, really belies how wide that is, a very wide space, but this photograph makes it look narrower. You can sit just under here and have a very nice view of either side of these. But it just shows you how our form is capable of elevating the mind just through the device called color. This building you didn't need to sit there and figure out who the Bible characters were to be fully overwhelmed by the beauty of this building. You can say there's many more reasons in the architecture and other things than color, but color is a huge, huge thing, and so that's my jet lagging takeaway from my excursion to Paris town to France. So let me just give back again and thank Jimmy C. and Ben C. for their very kind continuing donations, and for all of you guys for liking, sharing, subscribing, and all that. Much appreciated. And hopefully I'll get to you with another video with a slightly less jet lag brain. It's just coming on me now. I realize how dense I feel. Let's see. I'm just going to walk through these one more time just for your sake. You can do this yourself, I guess. But a building full of color. What's not to love? Some stained glass. Look at all that. Look at all that wild stuff happening. Looks to be all hand painted, et cetera, et cetera. I couldn't say how much stencil, but it doesn't feel like stencil much. Yeah. So Flandrin, student of Ang, doing this work for many years, biggest part of his life. I would have shown you more of his stuff if I'd been thinking, but he was significantly a portrait painter, pretty much in the type of Ang. I think Ang is significantly more pretentious over time, more impressive. But this guy's putting his knowledge as a student of Ang to work really beautifully. And again, you can just look at the colors in this thing and see that it's fully invested. The colors already there, fully part of that. Who knows? He was probably having consultations with these guys, with the architects, with the painters of the pillars and all that stuff, the whole time he was painting these things. There's another one of those up in the corner. This one I show because some of my guys I've been trying to get them to do little single figures and learning how to do a beautiful pattern with a single figure in it. So there you are. Again, thank you, Mr. Producer, and your sweet family, Alicia and Solomon, for tagging along and being very helpful along the way. And for now, that'll just have to be it. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Oh, there is a little bit of conversation I forgot to mention. That is the idea of flatness, the idea of the flat patterns. The way these things adhere to the wall and stay flat on the wall, not poking holes in it. This is designed, obviously, these are holes in the wall. So there might have been some license to do it even here. But this is just one more reminder of how this kind of work has it as a primary job, not just going well with the colors of the room, but remaining flat in the drawing. So it's kind of a Parthenon kind of frieze, all these guys being, not a lot of, there's any distances that are formed out of things that are large and continuous, sort of also, separated flat planes, And so just to mention that, it's one of those things, it's one of those ways of keeping the wall flat. And this is ideal here, this is a flat wall by nature. So, and it has its holes in it. So it's possibly one you could have gotten away with punching a sort of a semi, and with good timing, punching some of those darks into the zone. But it's far more typical to do it this way. So just thought I also ought to mention that. It's almost symbolism, the pure flatness. But this is, again, if you want to look at something that might give you a read on this kind of stuff, just look at the Sistine ceiling by Michelangelo, especially the Libyan symbols, those people that exist on the sides, but in other places as well. The idea of most things just being flat patterns of value, patterns of color, and hope maintaining above all their relative flatness. There's a sense of form. The folds have form and all this sort of stuff, but it's very reductive. So I thought that might be something also to mention, that for the sake of you know uh, uh, anyone interested in looking further into the the mural problem. So, but it just shows you that you might have to, if you're painting with us, like us, and where we're heavy on the chiaroscuro side of things, the visual order and the way of creating space in a picture, that you can also, it doesn't, there's nothing about that way of working that limits you to, you can also do the outline based approaches. So again, invest yourself in the study of nature is the takeaway, isn't it? It always is. All right.